"Mama, why did you have to leave me all alone in this world?" She sobbed. "Who will I call Mama again? How do I make it in life without you or Papa? I am not just a poor girl now, I am an orphan." Once upon a time, in a small village called Amago, there lived a young couple, Okezie and Amarachi. They were poor farmers who worked hard every day to make a living. Life was not easy for them, but their love for each other was something words could not fully describe. No matter how difficult things got, they always stood by each other, sharing their struggles and joy. The people of Amago admired their love and commitment. Many villagers often talked about how Okezie and Amarachi were like two inseparable birds, always working together and supporting each other. Okezie and Amarachi had an 8-year-old daughter named Naza. She was a beautiful, smart and intelligent girl. Even though her parents were not rich, they made sure she attended school and was well taken care of. They believed education was important, and they did everything possible to provide for her. Their home was not big, and they did not have many possessions, but it was filled with love and unity. In the evenings, after a long day at the farm, they would sit together outside their small hut, sharing stories and laughing under the bright moonlight. Naza loved this moment the most. One sunny afternoon, Okezie and Amarachi were busy working in their farm. The sun was high in the sky, and sweat dripped from their faces. As they bent over their crops, they worked tirelessly, weeding and tending to their plants, hoping for a good harvest. "Amarachi, pass me the hoe," Okezie said, wiping sweat from his forehead. She smiled and handed it to him. "We are almost done for today," she said. "Soon we will go home and rest." Just as she spoke, something terrible happened. Okezie suddenly grabbed his chest and let out a loud cry. "My chest!" he screamed. Amarachi turned sharply and saw her husband clutching his chest in pain. Panic filled her heart as she rushed to him. "Okezie! Okezie! What is wrong?" she cried. But before she could reach him, he fell to the ground, struggling to breathe. Tears filled Amarachi's eyes. "Somebody help! Please! Somebody help!" She screamed at the top of her voice. Her loud cries echoed through the farm, reaching two young men who were hunting nearby. They dropped their bows and arrows and ran towards the sound. When they arrived, they saw Okezie lying on the ground, gasping for air. "What happened?" one of them asked breathlessly. "I don't know," Amarachi sobbed. One moment he was fine. The next, he screamed and fell. The hunters quickly lifted Okezie and carried him towards the village. Amarachi ran alongside with them, her heart pounding with fear. They took him to the home of a well-known herbal medicine man in the village, hoping he could help. The old herbalist looked at Okezie and mixed some herbs, trying his best to treat him. "Do not worry, my daughter," he assured Amarachi. "He will be fine. The sickness is strong, but we will do our best." Amarachi sat beside her husband, holding his hand tightly. "Okezie, you will be fine. You must fight. You must not leave me and Naza," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Days passed, but instead of getting better, Okezie's condition worsened. Amarachi did not leave his side. She barely ate or slept, praying that he would recover. One early morning, just as the sun was beginning to set, Okezie took his last breath. "No! No! Okezie, please wake up!" Amarachi cried, shaking him, but he was gone. Tears poured down from her face as she wept uncontrollably. Her heart felt like it had been torn into pieces. The man she loved, the father of her child, was gone. It was the worst moment of her life. She never imagined she would become a widow so early. How could she take care of Naza alone? How would she survive without Okezie? The villagers came to comfort her, but nothing they said could ease her pain. She had lost the love of her life, and her heart was broken. Life became difficult and unbearable for Amarachi and her daughter Naza. Their once happy home, filled with laughter and love, had now become a place of sadness and sorrow. The air in their small hut felt heavy, as if grief itself had settled into their walls. Naza missed her father terribly. Every evening, she sat outside, looking at the sky, hoping he would somehow return. But she knew deep down that he was gone forever. Her mother, Amarachi, was even more broken. She spent most nights crying, unable to sleep. She would hold her late husband's clothes close to her chest, sobbing, "Okezie, why did you have to leave me all alone?" She would whisper in the darkness, "I don't think I can cope without you. God, why me?" As the days turned into months, Amarachi's health began to fail. At first, it was just weakness, but soon it became more worse. She could hardly get up from her bed, and her body grew thinner each day. One evening, as Naza sat beside her mother, holding her frail hand, Amarachi made a decision. She knew she could not keep suffering in silence. She needed help. She reached for the small wooden stool beside her bed, took a deep breath, and picked up her small phone. "I must reach Akunne," she said weakly. Akunne was Amarachi's only elder sister. She lived in the city with her husband and 2 children, Promise and Adobe. She was the only family Amarachi had left. With the little strength she had, Amarachi managed to send a message to Akunne, explaining that she was very sick and needed her help. When Akunne received the message, she was shocked. She had no idea her sister had been suffering alone all this time. She immediately called Amarachi. "Amarachi, why didn't you tell me you were sick?" Akunne's voice trembled with worry. "I didn't want to bother you," Amarachi replied weakly. "But now, I don't think I can handle this alone. Don't say another word. I will come to the village first thing tomorrow morning. I will also bring some medicine for you," Akunne promised. The next morning, Akunne packed some food, medicine, and a few other things before setting out for the village. She could not stop thinking about her sister. When she arrived at Amarachi's house, she was not prepared for what she saw. Her sister lay on a tin mat, looking weak and fragile. Her skin was pale, and her once bright eyes had lost their shine. Akunne gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. "Amarachi, why didn't you tell me you have been sick?" She cried. Tears filled her eyes as she rushed to her sister's side. "Look at how weak and skinny you are." Amarachi tried to smile but failed. She reached out and held Akunne's hand. "My sister," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how I am feeling inside, but I have a request." Akunne's heart tightened with fear. "Amarachi, don't talk like this. You will be fine. I have brought some medicine." Amarachi shook her head weakly. "Just listen to me, Akunne," she said. "You are the only family I have left. If anything happens to me, please take care of my daughter, Naza. Promise me, my sister." Akunne's lips trembled. She held Amarachi's hand tightly. "Nothing will happen to you. You will get better. We will take care of you. We will take you to the city and get proper treatment." Naza, who had been sitting quietly beside her mother's side, suddenly burst into tears. "Mama, don't say that. God will heal you, and both of us will be happy again." Amarachi turned to her daughter, her eyes filled with love. She weakly touched Naza's face and smiled. "Naza nwam, I love you so much," she whispered. "I love you too, Mama," Naza replied, tears rolling down her cheeks. Akunne wiped her own tears and squeezed Amarachi's hand. "You will not leave us, my sister. We will fight this together." But deep inside, Amarachi knew her body was giving up. She had fought for too long. A few days later, in the quietness of the early morning, Amarachi took her last breath. Akunne and Naza's cries filled the small hut. Naza held her mother's lifeless body, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mama, wake up! Don't leave me too!" Akunne pulled Naza close, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. She rocked the little girl in her arms, whispering, "I promise, Naza, I will take care of you. You will never be alone." But nothing could stop the pain in their hearts. Amarachi was gone, leaving behind a daughter who needed love and a sister who had to fulfill her last wish. Naza cried bitterly as she sat beside her mother's lifeless body. The pain in her heart felt like a deep wound that would never heal. "Mama, why did you have to leave me all alone in this world?" she sobbed. "Who will I call Mama again? How do I make it in life without you or Papa? I am not just a poor girl now, I am an orphan." The days after her mother's death were filled with sorrow. The villagers came to pay their last respect, but nothing could comfort Naza. She felt like a part of her had been taken away forever. When the burial was over, Naza had no choice but to follow her late mother's sister, Akunne, back to the city. As they left the village, she turned back one last time, looking at the small hut that had once been her happy home. Silent tears ran down her cheeks. She already knew that life in the city wouldn't be easy. When they arrived in Akunne's house, Naza met Akunne's husband, Mr. Uzochukwu, and their two children, Promise and Adaobi. "Welcome, Naza," Mr. Uzochukwu said kindly, patting her on the head. "Thank you, uncle," Naza said in a small voice. Promise and Adaobi also welcomed her, though deep inside, they were not happy about her staying with them. They were both older than Naza and saw her as an extra burden. However, they knew she would be of help around the house. At first, Naza tried her best to adjust to her new life. She kept to herself most of the time, trying not to cause any trouble. But she soon realized that things would not be as easy as she had hoped. One early morning, she was sleeping soundly when she suddenly heard a loud voice. "Naza! Naza! Wake up this minute!" She jumped up in shock. It was her auntie, Akunne, standing over her with an angry look on her face. "Why are you still sleeping at this time?" Akunne shouted. "Do you expect me to clean the house, prepare breakfast, and also make my children's school lunch?" Naza rubbed her sleepy eyes and turned to look at the small clock beside her. It was just 4:30 a.m. She looked up at her auntie and said in a small pleading voice, "Please, auntie, it is still very early. Can I sleep for more 1 hour? I didn't sleep on time last night." Akunne's eyes widened in anger. "What did you just say?" she yelled. Naza quickly lowered her head. "I am sorry, auntie," she whispered. "Who are you to talk when I'm talking?" Akunne snapped. "What makes you think you have a say in my house? If you know what is good for you, get up from that mat this minute before I lose my patience." Naza scrambled to her feet, fear in her eyes. "You useless thing," Akunne continued. "If not for my late sister, what would a dirty girl like you be doing in my house?" Tears rolled down Naza's cheek as she quickly made her way to the kitchen. She could barely see as she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. As she began preparing breakfast, she whispered a quiet prayer. "God, what kind of life is this?" She cried softly. "Why did you allow my parents to die, leaving me in the hands of my wicked auntie and her children? Please, Lord, come to my aid." She knew that life in this house would be tough, but she had no choice. She had to survive. As Naza worked tirelessly in the kitchen, scrubbing pots and sweeping the floor, Promise and Adaobi were still fast asleep, snuggled under their blankets. The poor orphan girl had been up since 4:30 a.m. doing all the chores, while her cousins enjoyed their peaceful sleep. A few hours later, Promise and Adaobi finally woke up and got ready for school. Naza quickly served them breakfast and packed their lunch as Akunne had instructed. When they were done eating, they left the plates on the table and walked out without saying a word of thanks. "Make sure you wash our plates before we come back," Adaobi said as she picked up her school bag. "And arrange our shoes properly," Promise added. Naza only nodded, too tired to say anything. She watched them leave, leaving an ache in her heart. She wished she was also wearing a school uniform, carrying a bag, and heading to school like them. But instead, she was stuck at home, doing chores from morning till night. That afternoon, When Promise and Adaobi returned from school, they threw their school bags on the floor and went straight to the fridge to get cold drinks. Naza, Adaobi called out. Yes, Adaobi, Naza answered as she rushed from the kitchen. Take our school uniform and wash them properly. I don't want to see any stain on my. Adaobi commanded, handing her the clothes. Yes, I will wash them now, Naza replied, forcing a small smile. She took the uniforms and went outside to wash them. Her hands ached from all the scrubbing, but she knew she had no choice. After washing the clothes, she went back inside and continued with the other chores. By evening, Naza was completely exhausted. She had done everything Akunne asked her to do before she returned home, along with everything Promise and Adaobi had ordered her to do. She slowly sat at the edge of the couch, too tired to move. She watched as Promise and Adaobi played with their taps, laughing and enjoying themselves. In her heart, she asked, when will I live a good life like my cousins? When will I go to school? Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered, God, I miss my parents. Please help me overcome this situation. I never knew my auntie had such a wicked and heartless mind. How can she treat me, her only late sister's daughter, as if I am not a human being like them? Just then, she heard footsteps approaching the door. It was Mr. Uzochukwu, Akunne's husband. He had been away for some time because of his job. And now that he was back, he immediately noticed the sadness on Naza's face. She quickly wiped her eyes and forced a smile, trying to hide her pain. Naza, are you okay? Mr. Uzochukwu asked, sitting beside her. Yes, uncle, I am fine, she replied, looking down. You don't look fine, he insisted. Tell me, are you sure everything is alright? Naza hesitated for a moment, then said, maybe it's because I have been busy with house chores, uncle, that's all. Mr. Uzochukwu sighed and looked at her closely. He could see the tiredness in her eyes. Something did not feel right, but for now, he decided not to push her. Alright, he said gently, if you ever need anything, don't be afraid to tell me, okay? Okay, uncle, Naza said softly. But deep down, she knew she could not tell the truth. She was afraid of what her auntie, Akunne, would do if she found out. So, she kept her pain to herself, hoping that one day, things would change. The next day, Naza woke up early as usual. It was still dark outside, but she was already used to waking up before dawn. She quietly made her way to the kitchen to start her morning chores. As she washed some plates and set water on fire, she tried to be as silent as possible, but a slight clatter from the pot caught the attention of Mr. Uzochukwu, who had just woken up to ease himself. Curious about the noise, he walked towards the kitchen. To his greatest surprise, he found Naza standing on her toes, trying to reach out for something on the shelf. Naza, he called in a deep voice. Naza jumped in fright and turned around quickly. Uncle, good morning, sir, she greeted nervously. What are you doing here by this time of the night? Mr. Uzochukwu asked, frowning. Uncle, it's already morning, she replied quietly. He glanced at the clock on the wall. Morning, Naza. This is 4:30 a.m. he exclaimed. Yes, uncle, she said, lowering her gaze. I always wake up at this time every day. I don't want to get into any trouble with my auntie, Akunne. Mr. Uzochukwu sighed deeply and placed a hand on his forehead. He had always suspected that something was wrong, but now he was sure of it. Naza, go back to sleep, he said firmly. But uncle, I said go back to sleep. I will take care of the situation myself. He interrupted gently but firmly. Naza hesitated for a moment before nodding. She wiped her hands on her clothes and walked back to her small sleeping space, feeling a mix of relief and fear. Hours later, after Promise and Adobe had left for school, Akunne was getting ready to leave for work when her husband called out to her. Akunne, we need to talk, Mr. Uzochukwu said in a serious tone. She rolled her eyes and sighed. What is it? I am already late for work. Why is Naza not in school yet? Mr. Uzochukwu asked, his arms crossed. Akunne scratched her head and looked away. Honey, I am working on it already, she muttered. Working on it? Mr. Uzochukwu raised his eyebrow. For how long? It has been months now. What exactly are you working on? I said I will handle it, she replied quickly. Handle what? How wicked can you be, Akunne? Mr. Uzochukwu's voice was filled with disappointment. You make a small girl wake up every day by 4:30 a.m. just to serve you and your children like a slave? Is that fair? Akunne scoffed and placed her hands on her hips. What are you trying to say, Uzochukwu? I'm saying Naza is equally our daughter. Stop maltreating her like she's an outsider, he said sternly. Akunne folded her arms and shook her head. I gave her a roof over her head. I fed her and I clothed her. What else do you want me to do? Should I kill myself for her? Or am I the one that killed her parents? Mr. Uzochukwu's eyes darkened with anger. That is not the point, Akunne. And you know it. If you truly see her as family, then treat her like one. Do you think your sister will be happy seeing her daughter suffer like this? Akunne sighed and looked at the clock. Please, I don't have time for this argument. I'm already late for work. Without waiting for her husband's response, she picked up her bag and hurried out of the house, leaving Uzochukwu shaking his head in frustration. He knew he could not force his wife to change, but one thing was certain. He would not allow Naza to continue suffering in silence. Something had to be done. After Akunne left for work, Mr. Uzochukwu sat quietly in the living room, deep in thought. He had been disturbed since his conversation with his wife earlier that morning. He knew things were not right, but he needed to hear everything from Naza herself. Naza, he called gently. Yes, uncle, she answered, coming out from the kitchen where she had been cleaning. Come and sit down, he said, patting the space beside him on the couch. Naza hesitated for a moment. She was not sure why her uncle wanted to speak to her, but she obeyed and sat quietly. Now, I want you to tell me everything, Mr. Uzochukwu said in a calm but firm voice. Tell me what had been happening when I was not around. Don't be afraid. Just tell me the truth. Naza looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers nervously. She took a deep breath and slowly began to speak. Auntie Akunne, she does not treat me well, uncle, she said in a low voice. She makes me do all the house chores alone. Every single thing. Promise and Adobe don't help. They just give me more work to do. Mr. Uzochukwu clenched his jaw, his hands tightening in fist. Go on, he said. They call me a dirty thing, uncle. And sometimes, if I don't do the things exactly the way Auntie Akunne wants, she refuses to give me food. I go to bed hungry, Naza said, her voice shaking. As she spoke, tears began to roll down her cheeks. She quietly wiped them away, trying to be strong, but Mr. Uzochukwu could feel the pain in her words. I miss my parents, uncle, she whispered. I just want to be happy again. Mr. Uzochukwu felt a lump form in his throat. He could not believe how much this little girl had suffered right under his own roof. He reached out and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Naza, I am so sorry, he said sincerely. I didn't know things were this bad, but I promise you, from today, everything will change for good. You will no longer be treated like this again. Naza looked up at him, her eyes filled with hope. Really, uncle? Yes, he nodded. Starting from today, we will go and make inquiries about your schooling, and you will resume immediately. You deserve to be in school, just like Promise and Adobe. For the first time in a long while, Naza felt a tiny spark of happiness in her heart. That night, after dinner, Mr. Uzochukwu decided it was time to set things straight. He called his wife Akunne and their two children, Promise and Adobe, into the living room. Naza sat quietly in a corner, watching nervously. When everyone was seated, Mr. Uzochukwu cleared his throat and began speaking. I'm very disappointed in all of you, he said sternly, his eyes scanning their faces. How could you treat an innocent girl like this? Do you not see her as a human being like yourselves? Akunne shifted uncomfortably in her seat, while Promise and Adobe lowered their heads, unable to meet their father's gaze. From today onwards, Mr. Uzochukwu continued, I will not tolerate any form of maltreatment towards Naza. She is your cousin, and she will be treated with the same respect as any other person in this family. If I ever hear any bad complaint about how she is being treated again, you will all know why I am the man of this house. The room was silent. Akunne and her children knew that Uzochukwu was serious. Finally, Akunne sighed and looked at Naza. Naza, forgive me, she said, her voice low. I don't know what came over me. Yes, Naza, we are sorry, Promise added. We didn't mean to treat you badly, Adobe said softly. Naza nodded slowly. She wanted to believe them, but a part of her was still unsure if things would really change. The next day, as promised, Mr. Uzochukwu took Naza to a good school of his choice. When they arrived, the headmistress welcomed them warmly and asked Naza to take a small test to determine her level. After a few minutes, the headmistress smiled and said, "She is a brilliant girl. We will enroll her in primary 5. Mr. Uzochukwu beamed with pride. "Thank you, madam," he said. On their way back home from school, they stopped at the market. Mr. Uzochukwu bought a new school bag, a lunch bag, school shoes, and other necessary items for Naza. As she held her new school supplies, Naza felt her heart swell with joy. Maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change for the better. Though Akunne, Adaobi, and Promise had apologized to Naza in front of Mr. Uzochukwu, deep inside, they did not mean it. Their apologies were just acts to fool him for the short time he would spend with them. They knew that as long as he was in the house, they had to pretend to be kind to Naza. Mr. Uzochukwu, believing everything was fine, decided to make things fair for everyone. He divided the house chores equally among Naza, Promise, and Adaobi. For the first time, Naza no longer had to do all the work alone. She could finally eat as much as she wanted, sleep on time, and woke up like every other person in the house. With the little free time she now had, she focused on her studies. She enjoyed doing her school assignments and spent hours reading whenever she finished her chores. One evening, after washing the plates and sweeping the house, Naza sat on a small wooden stool in the corner of the living room. She carefully opened one of her school books and began reading, her small fingers tracing the words. "One day, I will go to the university and become someone great," she thought. "I will make my late parents proud." Despite all the challenges she had faced, she remained hopeful. She believed that education was her way out of suffering, and she was determined to work hard. 1 month later, Mr. Uzochukwu's leave came to an end, and it was time for him to return back to work. That morning, the house was filled with mixed emotions. Akunne and her children acted as though they were sad to see him go. They hugged him tightly, pretending to be affectionate. "Daddy, we are going to miss you," Promise said, clinging to his arm. "Yes, Daddy," Adaobi added. "When will you come back again?" "Soon, my daughter," Mr. Uzochukwu replied, smiling at them. Akunne, putting on her best fake smile, also hugged him. "Safe journey, my husband. Don't worry about us. We will be fine," she said sweetly. As all this was happening, Naza stood quietly by the door, watching everything. She already felt the pain of his absence, even before he had to leave. He was the only one in the house who truly cared for her, and now he was leaving. Noticing her standing there, Mr. Uzochukwu turned to her with a warm smile. "Naza, my little girl, come and give me a hug," he said, stretching out his arms. Naza hesitated for a moment before rushing into his embrace. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I will return soon before you know it. Be a good girl and keep studying hard, okay?" "Yes, uncle," Naza said softly, trying to hold back her tears. As he pulled away, he patted her on the head gently. "You are a bright girl, and I am proud of you." They all walked outside to see him off. As he got into his car, he waved at them. "Goodbye, my family," he called out. "Goodbye, Daddy," Adaobi and Promise shouted. "Goodbye, my husband," Akunne said, still smiling. "Goodbye, uncle," Naza said quietly, waving her small hands. As the car drove away, she felt an emptiness in her chest. What will happen now that uncle is gone? She wondered. She prayed that things would remain the same, but deep inside, she had a feeling that life was about to change again. One hot afternoon, Naza was returning home from school, her feet aching from walking such a long distance. She had no money for transport, so she had no choice but to trek under the scorching sun. As she got closer to the house, she wiped away sweaty face with the back of her hand. Her school uniform was dusty, and her stomach rumbled from hunger. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Immediately, she froze. Akunne was sitting angrily on a wooden chair in the living room, holding a long cane in her hand. Her face was filled with rage. "Where are you coming from at this time of the day?" Akunne's voice was sharp like a knife. Naza's heart started beating fast. Before she could explain, her auntie suddenly rose to her feet and started flogging her with the cane. "Auntie, please stop!" Naza cried, shielding herself with her hands. "So, you have started following boys up and down at this your young age, eh?" Akunne shouted as she continued to whip her. "So, you want to bring shame to me? You want people to say I am not taking good care of you? That is your plan, right?" With tears streaming down her face, Naza begged, "Auntie, no, I swear to God, I didn't follow any boy." "Liar!" Akunne spat. "That is the truth, Auntie," Naza sobbed. "This morning, when I was going to school, I asked you for transport money, but you said you don't have any money to give me. You told me to trek because, after all, I didn't take transport when I was in the village. So, that is your excuse for coming home late?" Akunne snapped, her eyes filled with hatred. Naza shook her head, trying to explain. "Auntie, the sun was too hot and my legs were tired, so I walked slowly." "Shut up!" Akunne interrupted. "Since you cannot respect my rules, you will no longer go to school." Naza's eyes widened in shock. "Auntie, please, I promise, I will not be late again," she cried. "No more school for you," Akunne said coldly. "And from today, you will only eat once a day in this house. Useless thing." Naza's heart shattered. Her dreams of becoming someone great, of making her late parents proud, were being taken away just like that. With a broken heart, she slowly walked through the living room, where Adaobi was sitting on the couch, pressing her tab. Adaobi looked up, smirking. "Chai, the brilliant girl is now dropping out of school. What a pity." Naza kept walking, pretending not to hear her, but Adaobi was not done. "Useless thing," she scoffed. "You thought you were better than us? Now, look at you. You deserve what you got." Naza bit her lips to stop her from crying. She didn't want to give Adaobi the satisfaction of seeing her pain. She finally reached her small room and shut the door behind her. She could no longer hold back her tears. She threw herself on the tin mat and cried like she had never cried before. "Oh, Mama. Oh, Papa." She sobbed. "Why did you both leave so early? The pain I am going through is too much for my age." She hugged herself tightly, her body shaking with grief. "God, please," she whispered between her tears, "lead me to a place where I will be loved and valued." That night, as she lay on the cold floor, her stomach empty and her heart heavy, she made a silent promise to herself. "One day, I will leave this house. One day, I will find happiness again." One evening, as Naza was folding clothes in the small corner of the living room, she overheard her auntie, Akunne, speaking on the phone. She did not mean to listen, but when she heard her uncle's name, she froze. "Ah, Uzochukwu, you are coming back next weekend?" Akunne's voice sounded a little more cheerful than usual. "That's good oh. We will be expecting you." Naza's heart leaped with joy. Uncle is coming back. She immediately felt a sense of relief. Maybe when he comes back, everything will be fine again. Maybe I will go back to school, she thought hopefully. For the first time in a long while, Naza went to bed with a small smile on her face. She whispered a prayer before closing her eyes. "Dear God, please let my uncle come back safely." The following weekend finally arrived, and Naza was excited. She had counted days and was eagerly waiting for her uncle's arrival. But instead of hearing the sound of his car outside, she heard her auntie scream. Akunne's phone slipped from her hands and fell to the floor as she burst into loud cries. "No! This cannot be happening," she wailed. Naza's heart pounded. "Auntie, what happened?" she asked, her voice shaking. Akunne turned to her with teary eyes. "Your uncle, he was involved in a terrible accident on his way home. They have rushed him to the hospital." Naza's knees went weak and she held onto the wall for support. No, not uncle. Tears filled her eyes. He was the only one who had ever shown her kindness. Without thinking, she ran to her small corner and knelt on the floor. "God, please don't let anything happen to my uncle. He is a good man and doesn't deserve this. Please keep him alive." She prayed, her voice trembling with emotion. Akunne, still crying, quickly grabbed her bag and rushed to the hospital to see her husband. Later that night, when she returned, Naza quickly ran to her. "Auntie, how is uncle? Is he okay?" "The doctor said he will be fine," Akunne replied, wiping her tears. "It's just a matter of time." Naza sighed in relief and whispered another prayer of thanks. A few days later, Naza was home alone. Her auntie was at the hospital, and Promise and Adobe had gone out. Her stomach growled loudly. She had not eaten anything since morning, and she was feeling very weak. She dragged herself to the kitchen, hoping to find something to eat. But when she tried to open the door, it was locked. Tears filled her eyes. What do I do now? Her hunger was unbearable. She had never felt so weak before. Desperate, she decided to walk along the street to see if she could find someone kind enough to give her food. As she walked slowly down the dusty road, she spotted a woman in her late 50s standing beside a car, speaking on the phone. Naza hesitated at first, but she knew she had no choice. Gathering courage, she walked straight to the woman and greeted her politely. "Good afternoon, ma," she said in a weak voice. The woman turned and looked at her from head to toe. "Good afternoon, my dear," she replied. "Please, ma, I'm very sorry to disturb you, but I'm very hungry, ma. I have not eaten anything since morning," Naza said, her eyes pleading. The woman put her phone down. "Why haven't you eaten since morning?" she asked, concern written all over her face. "My auntie is not at home and she locked the kitchen," Naza explained. The woman's expression changed. "Where are your parents?" "My parents died years ago," Naza replied softly. The woman sighed deeply, clearly moved by her words. She looked at Naza for a moment before asking, "Can you follow me to my house? I don't have food or any money with me here, but I can give you something to eat at home." Naza's eyes widened. Yes, ma, I will follow you," she said quietly. The woman smiled warmly and opened the car door. Naza hesitated for a moment, then got inside. As they drove off, Naza's heart pounded. She had never been inside a car before. She looked outside the window, watching the houses and trees pass by. When they arrived at the woman's house, Naza gasped. The house was beautiful, bigger than any she had ever seen. She stepped inside the living room, her mouth slightly opened in surprise. Everything looked shiny and beautiful. The woman chuckled. "You like my house?" "Yes, ma," Naza said, still looking around. The woman called out. "Awele!" A young housekeeper appeared. "Yes, ma. Please, warm some jollof rice and chicken for this young girl," the woman instructed. "Okay, ma," Awele replied and left. A few minutes later, Awele returned with a plate of steaming jollof rice and a big piece of chicken. Naza's stomach grumbled loudly, and she quickly started eating. She had never tasted anything so delicious. The woman watched her, feeling pity. "My dear, what is your name?" she asked gently. "Naza, ma." "Naza, tell me your story," she asked. Naza swallowed and wiped her mouth with the back of her hand before narrating everything. How her parents died, how she had been staying with her wicked auntie, how she had been mistreated, and how her only hope, her uncle, had just had an accident. As she spoke, the woman's eyes became watery. She almost burst into tears because Naza's story reminded her of her own childhood. She sighed and looked at Naza with deep sympathy. "My dear, what if I ask you to stay with me? Will you stay?" Naza's eyes widened in shock. Yes, ma," she cried, jumping from the couch and kneeling before the woman. The woman smiled and lifted her up. "You don't need to kneel down, my dear. Just sit, okay?" Naza sat back still in disbelief. My name is Mrs. Teresa. It's good you know my name, okay? Mrs. Teresa stood up and said, "Come, let me show you to your room." She led Naza to one of the rooms. When they opened the door, Mrs. Teresa said, "This is your room." Naza's eyes sparkled with joy. It was the most beautiful room she had ever seen. "You need to take a shower, and after that, we will finish our discussion," the woman said kindly. She then left and went to a nearby store to buy some casual clothes for Naza. When she returned, she handed them to her. "Here, put this one after you bathe." "Thank you, ma," Naza said excitedly. As she changed into her new clothes, a new thought crossed her mind. Maybe my life is finally about to change for the better. Later that night, Mrs. Teresa called Naza to the living room and promised to take good care of her and also make inquiries about school so she could resume school again. Naza embraced her tightly and promised to be a good girl to her. As she lay on the soft, luxurious bed, she stared at the ceiling, feeling the comfort of the blanket wrapped around her. For the first time in her life, she was not sleeping on the floor. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, God. Maybe, just maybe, I have finally found a place where I will be loved and valued." And with that thought, she drifted into a peaceful sleep. The following week, just as Mrs. Teresa had promised, Naza started school at one of the best schools in the area. She was excited and determined to make Mrs. Teresa proud. "I will not take this opportunity for granted," she told herself as she stepped into the school compound for the first time. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Naza worked hard in school, always coming out as one of the best students in the class. She loved learning and dreamed of becoming someone great in life. One evening, as Naza and Mrs. Teresa were eating dinner, Naza hesitated before speaking. "Ma, please, I'm sorry to ask," she started, looking down at her plate. Mrs. Teresa smiled. "My dear, you don't need to be sorry for anything. I want you to be free, okay? Just ask me anything." Naza looked up and asked softly, "What about your husband and children?" Mrs. Teresa's smile faded for a moment before she regained her composure. "My husband is late, my dear," she said, sighing, "and my children are all married. Some are here in Nigeria, while others are in abroad." Naza's face dropped. "I am so sorry for your husband's death, ma." Mrs. Teresa reached out and held Naza's hand. "It's fine, my dear. Such is life, and life goes on." She then smiled warmly and said, "You are now part of my children. In fact, you are now my lastborn." Naza felt her heart swell with joy. She had never expected such love in her life again. She jumped from her seat and embraced Mrs. Teresa tightly. "Thank you, mother," she said happily. Mrs. Teresa chuckled and patted her back. "You don't need to thank me, my dear Naza. You deserve love and happiness." Even though Naza was now in a happy and safe home, she never stopped thinking about her uncle. She constantly worried about his health, but knew there was little she could do at that moment. So, she whispered prayers for him every night, asking God to keep him safe and help him recover. Many years later, Naza had grown into a beautiful young woman. She had completed her education with excellent results and had a good certificate to show for it. Mrs. Teresa, proud of her achievements, made her the manager of one of her late husband's company in the city. Naza worked hard, and within a short time, the company grew and became more successful than it had in years. One evening, as Naza and Mrs. Teresa sat in the living room watching a movie, Naza suddenly turned to her. "Mother," she called softly. "Yes, my daughter." Mrs. Teresa answered, lowering the volume of the television. "There is something I want to tell you." "Okay, I'm listening," Mrs. Teresa said. Naza took a deep breath. "I really miss my uncle. I haven't seen him since he had that accident, and I'm so worried about him." Mrs. Teresa looked at her thoughtfully. "So, what do you want me to do for you now?" "Please, mother," Naza pleaded. "I want you to accompany me to where they used to live. I just want to see him, at least to thank him for all the good things he did for me." Mrs. Teresa smiled. "You know I will do anything within my power for you. When do you want us to go?" "Tomorrow, mother," Naza said excitingly. Mrs. Teresa nodded. "That's fine, my daughter." Naza hugged her and placed a small kiss on her forehead. "I love you, mother." Mrs. Teresa chuckled. "I know, and I love you so much too." The next day, Mrs. Teresa and Naza drove to the house where Mr. Uzochukwu used to live. When they got there, Naza was surprised to see unfamiliar faces. She walked up to a man standing outside the house and greeted him politely. "Good afternoon, sir." "Good afternoon, young lady," the man replied. "Please, sir, I'm looking for the occupant of this apartment," she asked eagerly. The man stretched his head. "I am the occupant of this house now." Naza's heart sank. "Oh, but sir, do you know anything about the previous occupant?" The man shook his head. "No, my dear, I don't have any information about them." Worry was written all over Naza's face. "God, please help me locate my uncle," she whispered. "At least I just want to see him and thank him for all he did for me." They drove around the neighborhood, hoping to see someone who might know his whereabouts. But all their efforts proved fruitless. That night, Naza whispered a prayer before sleeping. "Dear God, please keep my uncle safe and sound wherever he is." One day, as Naza was driving back from the office, she noticed something was wrong with her car. She pulled over to check and realized that one of her tires were low on air. She looked around, hoping to find a vulcanizer nearby, and luckily, she saw one not too far from where she was. She drove up to the spot and stepped out of the car. "Good afternoon, sir." She greeted the vulcanizer. "Good afternoon, my daughter," the elderly man replied. After the man had finished fixing the tire, Naza stretched out her hand to pay him. But just as she looked at his face, she gasped in shock. "Uncle Uzo!" she shouted, her eyes wide. The man looked at her, confused. "My daughter, please remind me, who are you?" Tears welled up in Naza's eyes. "Uncle, it's me, Naza." Mr. Uzochukwu's eyes filled with tears as he recognized her face. "Naza, my daughter," he cried, pulling her into a tight embrace. "I have missed you so much, Uncle." Naza sobbed. "And I have missed you so much too, my daughter," he said, his voice breaking. She wiped her tears and held his hand. "Come with me, Uncle." She drove him to a nearby boutique and bought him new clothes, ensuring he looked neat and presentable. Then, she took him to Mrs. Teresa's mansion. When they arrived, Mr. Uzochukwu was in shock. "Naza, you mean this is where you have been living all these years?" he asked in disbelief. Naza smiled. "Yes, Uncle. Come, let's go inside. My mother will be happy to see you." As they entered the living room, Mr. Uzochukwu looked around at the beautiful interior, his mouth slightly open in shock. Mrs. Teresa, who was sitting quietly, smiled warmly at him. "Welcome to my home, Mr. Uzochukwu," she said. "My daughter has told me so much about you. Your type is rare to find. God bless you for all you did for her." Tears filled Mr. Uzochukwu's eyes. "Thank you, ma," he said. "I am forever grateful to you." Naza then asked, "Uncle, why are you doing vulcanizer work?" Mr. Uzochukwu sighed deeply and narrated his story. "Before I could fully recover from my injury, my position at work was given to someone else. I searched for jobs, but nothing worked out. At some point, I couldn't even afford my rent, and my landlord gave me a quick notice. Life has not been good at all. My wife also lost her job due to my health issues." Naza and Mrs. Teresa exchanged looks. "Don't worry, Uncle," Naza said with a smile. "Your suffering ends today." They served him a delicious meal, and before he left, he thanked Mrs. Teresa again for giving Naza the life she deserved. "I will never forget this kindness," he said, tears in his eyes. And from that day, life truly changed for the better. That night, when Mr. Uzochukwu got home, his heart was filled with emotions. He kept pacing around the small room, shaking his head and sighing loudly. His wife, Akunne, who was sitting on the bed, noticed his restless behavior. "My husband, is there any problem?" she asked with concern. "You have been moody and shouting since you came in." Mr. Uzochukwu stopped and turned to face her, his eyes filled with disappointment and frustration. "Guess who I saw today?" he asked, his voice laced with anger. Akunne looked at him, confused. "Who?" "I saw Naza," he said firmly. Akunne gasped. "Naza? The same Naza?" "Yes, the same Naza you treated like a slave." Mr. Uzochukwu said bitterly. "You see, wickedness is a very bad thing. A woman who doesn't even know her took her in as her own biological daughter. Can you imagine? The only one thing your late sister asked you to do was to look after her daughter. But no, you couldn't even do that. Instead, you turned her into your housemaid." Akunne remained silent. Her heart was heavy, and she could not even lift her eyes to look at her husband. Life is truly unpredictable. Mr. Uzochukwu continued. You thought you were making her suffer, but look at her now. She is successful, living in a beautiful house, and managing a big company. Why we, the ones who treated her badly, are here struggling to survive? Tears welled up in Akune's eyes. She lowered her head in shame. I regret everything I did, she whispered, her voice shaking. I never thought life would turn out this way. I wish I could turn back time. Tears streamed down her face, but she could not find the right words to express her guilt. Back at Mrs. Teresa's house, Naza and her mother were sitting in the living room, still discussing the situation of her uncle. My dear, Mrs. Teresa said, what are your plans for your uncle? After hearing this sad story, Naza took a deep breath and thought for a moment. She knew she had to do something to help him. Mother, she finally said, I'm thinking of buying a 3-bedroom apartment for him. That way, he will no longer have to worry about paying rent to anyone. Mrs. Teresa smiled warmly and nodded. That is a very good idea, my daughter. Naza continued, and I also want to give him 5 million naira so he could start a business of his choice and bounce back. Mrs. Teresa's smile grew even wider. She reached out and patted Naza's hand. Come and sit next to me, my daughter, she said, opening her arms. Naza moved closer, and Mrs. Teresa held her gently. You have a kind heart, Naza, she said with pride. You have a good plan for your uncle. Many people in your position would have ignored him, but you are different. You understand the meaning of kindness and forgiveness. Naza smiled, feeling grateful for the motherly love she had received from Mrs. Teresa. Look for a good house for him and get back to me, Mrs. Teresa added. I will support you in every way I can. Naza's eyes shone with happiness. Thank you, mother. You are truly the best mother ever. Mrs. Teresa chuckled. And you, my dear, are a great child. I am so proud of you. That night, as Naza lay on her bed, she thought about everything that had happened. She had once been a helpless orphan, mistreated and unloved. But now, she was in a position to help the very people who had treated her badly. Instead of feeling hatred, she felt peace. She closed her eyes and whispered, Thank you, God, for everything. I will continue to do good no matter what. And with that, she drifted into a peaceful sleep, ready to make a difference in her uncle's life. The following week, Naza and her mother, Mrs. Teresa, decided it was time to surprise Mr. Uzochukwu. They called him and asked him to meet them at their house by 4:30 p.m. Naza, my daughter, Mrs. Teresa said with a warm smile, Are you sure you are ready for this? Yes, mother, Naza replied confidently. Uncle Uzochukwu deserves it. He was the only one who stood by me when no one else did. By 4:30 p.m. that evening, Mr. Uzochukwu arrived at Mrs. Teresa's mansion. As he stepped inside, he was still amazed by how much Naza had grown into a confident and successful woman. My daughter, he said, hugging her tightly, you are growing and I am so proud of you. Thank you, uncle, Naza said, smiling. But today is not about me, it's about you. Mr. Uzochukwu looked confused. What do you mean? Come with us, Naza said, leading him to the car. Mrs. Teresa got inside the car with them, and they drove to a beautiful estate. When they arrived, Naza got out of the car, walked towards a big compound, and opened the gate. Mr. Uzochukwu's mouth fell open in shock as he stepped inside. The house was beautiful. It was a modern 3-bedroom apartment with a neatly paved compound. The walls were freshly painted and the environment was serene. Come inside, uncle, Naza said excitedly. With shaky steps, Mr. Uzochukwu followed them inside. The interior of the house was even more breathtaking. The furniture was brand new, the floors were polished, and everything looked perfect. Then, Naza turned to face him, holding out a key. Uncle, she said gently, this is the key to your new home. This is our little way of saying thank you for standing by me when no one else did. Tears filled Mr. Uzochukwu's eyes. Naza, you mean this house is for me? Yes, uncle, she nodded. You will never have to worry about paying rent again. Before he could respond, she handed him another envelope. And this, she said, is a check of 10 million naira. My mother and I want you to use it and start a business of your choice, so you can bounce back. Mr. Uzochukwu was completely speechless. His legs felt weak, and he dropped to his knees. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he held onto the key and the check. I don't even know what to say, he whispered. May God bless you and enrich you more. Naza and Madam Teresa, who am I to be a landlord of my own house? Naza knelt beside him and held his hand. Uncle, in my heart, you are my father. You were the only one who showed me kindness when I was suffering. I will forever be grateful to you. Mr. Uzochukwu wiped his tears and smiled through them. Naza, in my next life, you will be my biological daughter. When Mr. Uzochukwu got home that night, he was still in shock. His wife, Akunne, noticed his emotional state and asked, My husband, what is it? You have been crying. Is there a problem? He shook his head and sighed. No, Akunne, there is no problem. But today, I learned a big lesson about life. What happened? Akunne asked curiously. I went to see Naza again today, he said firmly. Akunne gasped. Naza? Yes, Naza. The same girl we treated badly. The same girl you turned into a housemaid, he said with disappointment. Today, she surprised me. She bought me a house. She gave me 10 million naira to start a business. Akunne covered her mouth in shock. What? You see, life is unpredictable, Mr. Uzochukwu continued. The person you look down on today may be the one to lift you tomorrow. If we had treated her well, maybe things would have been different for us. Tears rolled down Akunne's cheeks as regret filled her heart. My husband, please take us to Naza, she pleaded. I want to beg for her forgiveness. We treated her so badly. I cannot sleep with this guilt in my heart. Promise and Adaobi also came forward. "Yes, Daddy. Please, take us to her." Promise said, her eyes filled with regret. "We need to ask her for forgiveness," Adaobi added. "At least we can have peace of mind." The next day, Mr. Uzochukwu took his wife, Akunne, and his 2 children to Mrs. Teresa's house. When they arrived, he knocked gently on the door. Inside, Naza and Mrs. Teresa were watching a movie. When Naza heard the knock, she got up and opened the door. She was excited to see her uncle standing there. But when she saw Akunne, Promise, and Adaobi behind him, her smile faded. She slightly turned around and went back to sit beside her mother, her expression cold. Mrs. Teresa noticed the change in her mood. She looked at the guest and said kindly, "Please, come in and have a seat." However, instead of sitting, Akunne, Promise, and Adaobi knelt down. "Naza, my daughter," Akunne began, her voice shaking, "I have come to ask for your forgiveness. We treated you badly when you were with us. We made you suffer. Please, forgive me." Promise and Adaobi also spoke. "Naza, we are so sorry," Promise said. "Yes, we regret everything we did." Adaobi added, "Please, forgive us." Naza remained silent, staring at them with mixed emotions. Mrs. Teresa gently took her hand and said, "My beautiful and loving daughter, please forgive them for my sake. And for your uncle's sake, let peace reign in your heart." Naza sighed deeply. After a moment, she looked at her auntie and cousins. "I forgive you," she finally said. Tears of relief flowed down Akunne's cheeks. "Thank you, my daughter. May God bless you." A few years later, Naza got married to a wonderful man, and their home was blessed with 3 daughters and a son. Mrs. Teresa was the happiest mother, always surrounded by her daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren. One evening, as they all sat together in the garden, laughing and sharing stories, Naza held her mother's hand and whispered, "Thank you for everything, Mother." Mrs. Teresa smiled and kissed her forehead. "You are the best thing that have ever happened to me, my daughter." And so, they lived happily ever after, proving that kindness, love, and forgiveness always bring a beautiful ending. Lessons from this story. Number 1. Kindness always wins. Naza suffered greatly at the hands of her auntie, but despite everything, she chose kindness and forgiveness. Her good heart led her to a better life. Number 2. Life is unpredictable. The people who looked down on Naza never imagined that she would one day be in the position to help them. This teaches us to treat everyone with respect because we don't know what the future holds. Number 3. Wickedness has consequences. Akunne, Promise, and Adaobi mistreated Naza when she was helpless. In the end, they regretted their actions and had to ask for forgiveness. This shows that treating others badly will always bring regret. Number 4. Education is powerful. Naza's determination to study helped her to succeed in life. No matter where you come from, education can help open doors to a brighter future. Number 5. Forgiveness brings peace. Even though Naza was hurt by her auntie and cousins, she chose to forgive them. Holding grudges only brings pain, but forgiveness brings peace and happiness. Number 6. Helping others is rewarding. Mrs. Teresa, a stranger, took Naza in and gave her a better life. In the end, she gained a loving daughter and happiness. When we help others, we make the world a better place. Lastly, hard work and determination led to success. Naza never gave up, even when things were hard. Her determination to succeed made her a great woman in the end. This story teaches us that no matter how difficult life may seem, with kindness, determination, and faith, good things will always come our way. Thank you so much for watching. Your love and your support means everything to me. If this story inspired you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones to spread the inspiration. I would also love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more interesting African stories. See you in the next video. Bye!